Hi, everybody, and welcome back to TR's Take. Last week, I shared my thoughts on adversity, and for the next 2 weeks, we're going to bring some alumni in to have conversations on that topic. Our first guest is Jim Mecir. Jim is a 1992 grad of Eckerd College. He is a former major league pitcher, spending 10 years in the major leagues, and is currently a motivational speaker working with Improv Talk. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here. We're going to kick it off right away, and I wanted to know, I know your story a little bit, even though our times in school here didn't overlap. I was here the whole time, so I know your story a little bit, but I'd like you to take everybody through your story and how you had to deal with adversity from the high school level and then right up through college and then right in the major leagues.
Well, it started when I was born. I was born with a club foot. My right foot was turned in towards my left, and I needed 2 surgeries by the time I was 8 to correct the problem. But it left me with a right calf that's half the size of the left, a leg that's an inch shorter, and a fused ankle that has no mobility. So growing up, it wasn't that much of a problem for me because I didn't know any better. I'd play sports, do everything. You know, there were certain things I couldn't do. I couldn't play football. I loved playing hockey, but I couldn't do it because my ankle would collapse when I put skates on, different things. So baseball was my love, but it was also something that I could do. I wanted to be an infielder at the beginning, but then my mobility because of that leg didn't really allow that to happen. And pitching shouldn't have been because my mechanics are not what right now I would teach my young players how to throw, but it's the way that I could throw. The adversity started later, when you're trying to convince people that you could play baseball because, scouts would come and be like, well, look, he's limping around, he's got to carry that bulk. It's going to be bad for his arm, his bad mechanics. So that was a difficult thing. But, I had a purpose. It was passion. I loved baseball and I was going to do it until somebody told me that I can't. So it was just tough as long as you put up the numbers. But, going to Eckerd was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me because it was a Division II school. So I got a chance to play right away. But the scouts are there because it's such a great baseball conference. And, I got to work with Rich Folkers, my pitching coach. I was a former big leaguer, and he's the one who taught me, how to throw that screwball. So the adversity, it's a lot of more mental stuff, even though it was a physical problem.
Now, you did say mobility, but I can't remember the exact stories, but someone told me while we were here, and I was an assistant coach, that with your club foot, you were one of the fastest guys on the team. Was that a story or was that the truth?
No, I'm fast. I just can't change directions very well.
Okay.
So.
Well, I remember hearing the story and being pretty amazed that, gosh, that's unbelievable. I knew you were a great pitcher, but the speed and stuff like that and athleticism, so it didn't affect you there. It affected you with east and west, not north and south.
It's very weird. So I have more problems walking than I do sprinting. So yeah. Because you use more of your calf walking when you get up that speed of running, it's a lot more thigh muscle. So I didn't have as much. My one stride was about a foot shorter than the other, but I guess that didn't mean as much as when you're walking and trying to move and change direction.
Well, you talked going through Eckerd and how you fought through that, and you had a purpose and you loved the sport. And I want to talk about purpose later because that's something I didn't talk about last week. When you got to the majors, and we talk about adversity, I mean, it might be changing teams or changing the rotation. How did you deal with those steps?
Well, everything happened in stages. It's really about mindset. So if I would think about, say with the Yankees, when I really just started my career right after I got traded from the Mariners, in 96, 97, I was sent up and down 7 times. And, sometimes it was because of my performance. Sometimes it was because somebody like Dallas Strawberry or Hideki Irabu was coming off the disabled list. But I started putting pressure on myself. I wanted to stay there. And I started thinking, if you're perfect, I try to make every pitch perfect. So I'd get outs and they couldn't send me down. And that made it worse. I realized that I needed to be consistent and not perfect because you're never going to be perfect. And if you try to be perfect, it really breaks down your confidence.
Yep.
Because any little mistake is going to seem like a failure. So I had to learn that lesson there. Then when I got to the Devil Rays, my coach, Larry Rothschild, really helped me. He gave me psychological safety. He told me right before the season started that I was on the team. And it was amazing what it did for me, because now in spring training, instead of, only playing to my strengths and trying to get every single guy out because I only had a few outings, I realized I could actually work on stuff. And I became a better pitcher in that month and a half than my whole career, and never went back to the minor leagues. So I'd say the biggest adversity though for me was when I was my last half of my career, because I needed 4 more surgeries. The rest of my body was starting to break down because of the club foot. So that was the hardest part, and that was really finding that confidence and getting rid of that negative voice in my head every single time I was out there, because that's a big thing. Because pitching, once you let go of the ball, you have no control. So it's tough to get rid of that voice. A-Rod's up, he's hitting well, bases are loaded, the crowd's going crazy, umpire's not calling strikes, whatever it is. As soon as those voices are in your head, that's usually when you start pitching bad.
Right. So was there a go-to? You talked about mental earlier. Was there a go-to you when you hit those places? Is there something you went to? Did you have a trick? Did you have I don't know, a safe place?
Well, so the last one I learned how to get rid of that negative voice on one particular day in Seattle. I remember it perfectly, and I actually use this in my talks now. It was at the end of the year in 2000. We were fighting Seattle for a playoff spot, and I woke up just mentally low. Just, I had those voices just waking up. Your fastball's slowing down, your screwball's horrible. The Mariners are a good hitting team. You could lose this, all this stuff, and I couldn't shake it. And then I got to the game, and it kept it with me. And Tim Hudson was pitching that day, and I'm like, yo, go the whole game. That'll be great. I don't want to get in this game. But 7th inning, I got the call because his pitch count was going up. We were winning by 3. And I get out there, and I have to face Ricky Henderson, Alex Rodriguez, and Edgar Martinez. And it's 1st and 2nd and no outs. And I still change nothing until I get on that mound. I get Ricky out, and it was luck. It was 3 bad pitches. I guided them the whole time. Just, sometimes you get lucky. And then Mike Cameron stepped up to the plate, and I started that self-talk again. And I was thinking, you better get him out. A-Rod's coming up next. You better not walk him. And A-Rod's coming up. And, of course, I walked him. And I talked myself right into that. And now the crowd's going crazy, and A-Rod comes up. And then something happened. I don't know where I got it from, but something just came out from him. He was like, you're being a baby. Take the ball. Throw it through the glove. Who cares? So when I get back on the mound, it's anger, but that fear and anxiety's gone. And so I'm not even really thinking now. The crowd's going crazy. I'm just like, I'm mad, and I just look at the catcher, and whatever he puts down, I start throwing. But the thing is, I attack it. I'm attacking every pitch, and I go on to strike out Alex Rodriguez, and then Edgar comes up, and I go on to strike him out, and we win the game and clinch the playoffs. Going down the road, but we clinched on the last day of the season. So if I couldn't control my emotions for that, 5 minutes, I could have blown the whole season. Right. So after that day, for the rest of my career, I use what I call the ABCs of confidence. Every day that I woke up, I assessed my emotions. So I knew how I was feeling. If it's a positive day, usually you're pretty good. You don't need a lot of help. But if you're negative, somewhere along the line, before you face your adversity, you're going to have to change your mindset. So, when I faced my adversity, pitching, throwing a ball, every batter that came up, I would breathe, because I know when you're an athlete too, when you're anxious and you shallow breathe, you're locking up, you're not going to be able to play your ability. So, every pitch had a big, deep breath to get it out there. And then C was clear. It was every time I was going to throw a pitch, I made sure there was no other talk in my head. There's the umpire's not calling strikes. It's raining, cold, Ken Griffey Jr.'s up, whatever it is. I just made sure I throw 2 things: what pitch I want to throw and attack the zone. And it really helped me, because in the last 5 years of my career, I had a lot of injuries, and still I put up some pretty good numbers at times.
Yeah, that's great. We talked about that last week. I said, when you hit that adversity, you've got to find a way through it, but sometimes you have to step back and take that breath and analyze the situation, and then find the best path around it and stuff like that. And to your clear part, we used to talk about when people made a mistake, all they could think about was me yelling at them on the sideline my last couple of years of coaching. And we said, let's just go with next play. When you make a mistake and I say, hey, don't do that, we all say next play, and we move on and clear your head, so you're not trying to play defense or trying to play offense with coach in your head and stuff. Can't play the game.
We call that short memory. That's what as a reliever, you better have a short memory, because you bring those failures forward what if you don't.
Yeah, you talked about purpose, and that's something I didn't talk about last week, but you and I talked about it the other day on the phone. And you said something about purpose earlier. My purpose, when we're athletes as students and after college, our purpose is to get better and win. Yours to have another contract and win games and put numbers up. In college, it was to be on the team and start or play more minutes. In my position now, my purpose is the students in Eckerd College. When I hit adversity, when we're hitting this COVID, I'm stepping back and saying, okay, we got to get through this because this is Eckerd, because of these student athletes, because of these students, and we got to fight our way through. You had that day where you said you stepped back and you got angry and you fought through because you said, I don't want to paraphrase, but I don't want to stop being a baby and go get it or something like that. Do you have a purpose when you were in college, when you were in professional ball, and now as a dad? Do you have a purpose that helps you fight through tough times?
It depends. Well, being a dad, that's obviously, you have kids, you love them, you're going to fight for them and do whatever. College, I don't even know if there was a purpose. It was more to win and just constantly get better. I guess it's just when you love something, your purpose is to get better at it.
Yep.
So I mean, it's a passion, and when you have a passion, it's a lot easier to have a purpose.
Right.
Now I found my purpose is trying to teach these people all the lessons I learned throughout my career, because I look back, and if I could have learned the lessons I did before I started my career, I know I've not only been a better player, I'd have been a better teammate.
Right. Yeah. And we discussed this a little the other day, but now you have kids. We talked about my kids and sometimes how I get in the way of my kids. And tell me how you help your kids with adversity now. Instead of I had a problem, I'd just do things for them. But now, how do you help them through adversity?
Well, yeah, now they're high schoolers, and it's obviously better for your last one to have three, and you learn lessons along the way, because the first one you're trying to do everything for, it's your first kid and everything. But now I realized, you got to let them be independent. You got to let them struggle, and they have to fail and find that resiliency, because if they don't, when they do come into a really big problem, it's going to be tough for them to get over it. So, I always tell them I'm here to help, but you're going to start it off and figure out what you need to do. And then if, you've run into a big bump in the road, I'll try to help you a little bit, but I'm not going to do it for you, because it's just and I see that a lot. Everybody keeps talking about the generation thing. I don't know how different the generations are. My generation probably caused this younger generation to not be resilient, because we did everything for them. So it's just, it's not really a generation thing. It's just how people deal with certain things and pass it along.
I think we enable or handicap people at young. Like my first years as coaching, I always just wanted to do things to help people get through, and that handicaps them a little bit, or that sets them up for failure later when they have to do it themselves. I think I agree with that. Lastly, we got all these Tritons now that are going to be listening to this. What would you advise for the current Tritons here, or maybe the recent graduates that are going to hit adversity, hit some roadblocks? What would be your advice to them to try to fight or get through them?
Well, I'll tell you, this is what I teach. I think soft skills are so valuable, but a lot of people, they don't really have a price on them, right? It's hard to quantify, how much they're worth, but it really is. If, like I said, all the lessons I learned, if I learned them when I was younger, things would have been a lot easier. So baseball, it's a team game, right? It's really about what you need to do. It's not worrying, am I going to get drafted? Did I go 2 for 4 today? And even in school, you can't worry about, do I have a 4.0 or do I have a 3.85? It's really about building relationships that are going to probably be the most important. Intelligence obviously is important, but building the relationships and trust with other people will take you a lot further.
Well, really appreciate you being here today. And I haven't been up to Chicago in a while, but next time I get up there, I hope we get together for breakfast again. And thanks again. And hopefully when this all clears, we can see each other.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
I appreciate everybody for joining TR's Take, and we'll see you next week.